All right, we're here for an installment of Chupacabra Games Modern Mondays, the 4th of July edition. Looks like our round one is going to be Steven versus Zach. I know Steven's been messing around with some variants of 4-color control, trying to find just the best version of that deck. And I know last week he was playing something a little different with no Yorion companion and some more counter spells in the main deck. And today it looks like also no companion. Unless, nope, looks like we do have a Yorion companion he's about to reveal. And Zach, I know the last time we saw him, he was on one of the Cascade decks, whether it be Living End or Rhinos, where we'll find out shortly. And when you see Yorion companion selected, and Steven will be on the play. Now, one of the Cascade decks is a lot easier for the 4-color deck to beat, and I think that's Rhinos. It's just going to commit a bunch of creatures to the board, and that's really what the 4-color deck is built to do, is answer creatures. Whereas Living End is going to be a little more sneaky with the way it develops threats, and it's going to develop a board all at once, sometimes on your opponent's end step, and just be able to untap and crack in with a bunch of damage that sometimes the 4-color decks just can't answer, and they kind of need help from sideboard cards like Flusterstorm or Chalice of the Void. So hopefully, for Steven's sake, the Zach is on Rhinos, as it's a little bit easier of a game to win in the first game of the match, but it does get just even better in the sideboard, as you do get access to things like Chalice and Flusterstorm, which will just put you even further ahead in that battle against the Cascade decks. Looks like our players are just shuffling up, deciding mulligans. Looks like Steven's keeping his 7. Zach might be mulliganing down to 6 here. Looks like Zach will lead on Eldrazi Temple. So neither of the Cascade decks, actually. It was just going to be Eldrazi Tron all along. We do see turn 2 Matter Reshaper, so it's going to be a little bit of an annoyance for the 4-color deck, but generally you can take a hit or two off of that rather than letting it die. It only gets worse if you actually just kill this card rather than just let it hit you and be a 3-mana 3/2. Of course, you can also Prismatic Ending. It's a pretty good answer to it, as this is a dies trigger, not a leaves the battlefield trigger. But letting Meta Reshaper actually draw a card is probably the worst thing you can do, so long as it doesn't make your life total too low. You should be fine. Steven did find a second land. See a Ren and 6 here potentially. Shotgun a Sacred Foundry down to 17. And if we have a Ren here, it will get a couple lands out of it, as well as keeping the Matter Shaper in check. Okay, so Steven opting to bolt it immediately, allowing Zach to draw a card, which I feel like main phasing that bolt is a little bold. He might be in fear of maybe something like Reality Smasher, but seeing Zach miss a land drop there would definitely be a reason to not bolt it, as it gets Zach further into his deck, as I would like to just let him see as few cards as possible in this situation. And we'll see. Oh, so Steven's on Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We might be seeing just an Elementals version of 4-color. I have seen Fable pop up in a few of these lists. I think it's really strong. It adds a lot to the deck, actually. It allows you to filter your draws in like the mid game, so to speak, and lets you get rid of excess lands in the late game, as well as provide a blocker that does generate mana of any color, so it helps turbo out an Omnath turn a turn earlier, similar to how Ragavan does when it makes treasures. We should just take 3 damage here, yeah, and keep our Goblin Shaman around. Alright, so just a Relic pass back for Zach. Nothing too crazy. We do have true Tron pieces, so we're not far off from being able to make a ton of mana and cast that card in the Great Creator we know about. Steven choosing to discard a Fury and a Teferi to draw 2 additional cards off of the Saga. And once Fables gets going and it gets to flip, you are able to really take advantage of all of the Flame Tongue Kavus in your deck and creatures with other enter the battlefield triggers, as you're able to just maximize value on that. We see Relic take care of the graveyards, allowing Ren and 6, allowing Zach to have an opportunity to nullify Steven's Ren and 6 here. And we are going to make a treasure. Looks like Steven might be a little light on lands, so this treasure might stick around. And I'd like to see an uptick on Ren and 6, even if there is no graveyard. It's still good just to get the loyalty outside of Matter Reshaper range. Looks like Iteration might be the play, though, so we are going to... Oh, no, Boseiju, actually. Okay, so Boseiju is going to take care of the mine. Pretty good sequencing here from Steven to keep his Boseiju around, and now the Ren is going to be able to pick up the Boseiju and make it just as hard for Zach to get the ball rolling here. And looks like Zach will pick up a Swamp as to have a source of colored mana. Maybe something like main deck Dismember we might see. Alright, so Ren and 6 might go to 1 loyalty here, but that is fine. 1 loyalty is not 0. It's like an expedition map in hand for Zach. That'll help find Tron lands, but Zach is in the hole a little bit here. And we will start a prediction for you guys here. A little late, I know, but better late than never. All right. And prediction is up for you guys now. Let's see who will win the round number 1 of Monday Modern here. Okay, so Risen Reef from Steven is more than likely going to indicate that Steven is on the Elementals version of the 4-color deck, which I think is the better home for the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. There's just that many more elementals that you get to interact with, as well as you can power it out with something like Utopia Sprawl. Looks like just Eldrazi Temple will be picked up off of the Expedition map. That's going to net us a little bit closer to something like All Is Dust, which would be a pretty good answer to the board state that Steven has been building to here. We are 1 off from All Is Dust, though, notably. Here is a 3-land Reality Smasher, but we'll see if Steven has anything like Solitude to take care of that. And it looks like Smasher is just going to come across at Ren, which I kind of like. I mean, we know about the Beseiju. We kind of don't want to keep looping that forever. We're going to use a treasure to ephemerate the Risen Reef. Zach will tap black and 4 life for Dismember targeting the Risen Reef. So effectively 2 for wanting Steven here with just 1 Dismember. It's been a pretty good inclusion ever since Ragavan had been introduced into the format. There's been a lot more Dismembers and Warping Whales take place that we've seen that have really just been used to take care of something like Ragavan or DRC, but every now and then you will see it come up in matchups like these. It kills Omnath pretty well, and as we saw here, it takes out just any of the straggling elementals that the 4-color player tries to flicker with Ephemerate. I wonder if the Fable token or the Fable backside had Summoning Sickness, because that might have been a better option than the Ephemerate, as it's less committal and you don't lose a card for it. And then you get 2 Risen Reef triggers. Well, here's a backup Risen Reef from Steven. We'll see if we can find a 4th land that isn't Beseiju.
Oh, for what? No. Nothing. It's made.
Looks like no land was picked up. We do have another Fable, which could net us another treasure token. I believe it is going to be pitched to a Fury, though, so we can get a Risen Reef trigger and deal 4 damage to a Smasher. We're gonna look at the top card. It was not a land, as it went straight to the hand. It looks like there's a second Fury in hand. So we're gonna get another treasure. The treasure is actually gonna be able to make a copy of a Fury, which I'm surprised we didn't see before combat. We could have made a copy of the Fury before the Evoke died, or before the Evoke killed it. But now that opportunity has since passed. So Steven is going to opt for the Solitude, get rid of one Smasher, and have the mana to activate Fable to be able to take out the second Smasher. So saving the Fable, the Mirror Breaker creature, to be able to make two Solitudes here to take out any other threats is going to be a pretty big advantage here to gain, as a way that the 4-color deck can lose to Eldrazi Tron is just off of the back of Reality Smashers, as they're a little difficult to answer. It's definitely doable off the back of Solitude, but I mean, it is an 80-card deck, so if you can't find them right away, it can be a little troublesome. So we're going to see Omnath come down here, and I think this is when 4-color just turns the corner, and really the only out from the Eldrazi Tron players' side of things is just All's Dust, which actually does a really good job of clearing up the board. If you can go like make Tron into All's Dust, play Karn, that's probably a way that Zach can get out of this game. Although I believe it's just one Tron land left in play, so that play might be out of the question. We just need to find another temple or something if we want to cast All's Dust, if Zach even has it in hand. Zach will draw, and we'll see. I don't think we see All's Dust in hand for him, so Omnath might just be able to take over this game, one fetch land at a time. And the combination of Omnath and Risen Reef, being able to find more lands for Omnath to get more mana, especially with the reflections of Kiki-Jiki, being able to make more Risen Reefs every turn. We're really seeing the power of the Fables here, especially in a matchup where there are not a lot of removal spells. You're actually able to get massive amounts of value off of just creating copies of Risen Reef. And if you ever get two Fables to flip, this is definitely a matchup where you can, your opponent's end step, just make a bunch of copies of the reflections and then untap and make a lot of Risen Reefs to get an enormous amount of triggers to probably win the game from there. It seems very unlikely. Zach is going to drop down a third Reality Smasher for the game and see if that can help him out here. In the face of a lot of power, yeah, I kind of like attacking here. I don't think Zach is really in any danger of actually losing the game through damage. And I don't think Steven has any amazing blocks, as you might as well just attack for 5. I imagine there can't be too many Dismembers hanging out. in Zach's main deck, so we're probably not going to see that many more. I mean, I think 2 is a fair number for the Eldrazi Tron decks to be playing, but having something like Dismember to take out Omnath would make this board a little bit easier to deal with. And so now we do see Omnath basically just carrying Steven through this game. Once you get to the point of resolving an Omnath and having it for a turn, generally just the turn you play it, the amount of advantage that is gained is very strong. As we see Steven with many cards in it, I think among them Eternal Witness. I think we see an Ephemerate as well. Here's a Fury off of the back of Omnath mana for hard casting, so we're going to deal 2 damage there and 2 damage to Reality Smasher. We will see Ugin the Ineffable come into play. Come into Zach's hand here. As we start to play Furies, we have ways to actually deal with Reality Smasher. We also see Bolt. Reality Smasher will trigger. Steven has to discard a card unless he would like the ability to be countered, but he has a Flamekin Harbinger, I believe, that he discarded, so that's a little something we don't see every day. Is the Harbinger, generally out of the 60 card variant for elementals, we are going to see it in the 80 card variant here. Going to add extra value with a Risen Reef in play, as well as just a lot of setup in your 80 card deck to be able to find these 1 of, and sometimes even 4 of elementals, where it can just mean an extra copy of Omnath rather than Eldamri's Call. So one of the downsides of this elementals version of the deck is it's not going to be running things like Counterspell or like March of the Otherworldly Light. It's going to be lighter on removal and heavier on just raw creature power, like we see the Harbingers, we see Fable the Mirrorbreaker, but that does leave Steven up a little vulnerable to something like All's Dust, or even an Ensnaring Bridge if we see Karn come down ever. That card's going to allow Zach to buy a little time, hopefully enough to draw lands for something like All's Dust. Or I don't believe Zach is on any of the 8 mana Ugin, but that card is pretty sick at dealing with a lot of elementals and still remaining in play. So here's Flamekin Harbinger, and with the Risen Reef in play, this will essentially tutor the card on top and then immediately put it into Steven's hand. Looks like Solitude will just be the play, and in the face of Zach's final Reality Smasher, that makes a lot of sense. We're just going to run Zach's Well Dry out of threats, and hopefully there's no way he can win the game after this, as he is going to be attacked for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at the very minimum, and we could just see a copy of Fury, and that's going to be 12 damage just from the 2 Furies that we're going to see there. Looks like Abundant Growth will be put on the Beseiju. We'll find us another Risen Reef. I'd probably hang on to that one just in case we do see some kind of sweeper come into effect. But of course, you can always just play it, as it'll net you several cards here, as there is. That'll be the second Risen Reef in play. It looks like Zach has seen enough after the second Risen Reef, and he will concede game 1. 23 minutes in. And we just have about half of the time in round left in this match, and Steven will be up a game here. Of course, that will mean Zach will be on the play for game number 2. I think something that he's going to be looking for in his sideboard. I would imagine that Chalice of the Void is already main deck. If it's not, I would bring those in. Chalice on 1 is surprisingly good against these 4-color decks. It's going to nullify a lot of their cards that help interact early, as well as even late, in the form of just stopping Ephemerate, and it would stop Bolts, a small Prismatic Ending, and also Abundant Growth. So if Zach on the play can resolve a Chalice on 1, that could be pretty crippling from the 4-color side of things. And Steven is probably going to be looking at Magus of the Moon, if that's something in his sideboard. But with the Flamekin Harbinger, I would like to see not elemental creatures in the graveyard or in the sideboard. But that, of course, does not rule out the possibility that Steven might just be on Eldamir's Calls and the Harbingers at the same time, which would allow him to play more unique sideboard cards like Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, or Emrakul the Promised End, the 13 mana one that'll help win the control mirrors. We do see Obsidian Charmaw, as well as Knight of Autumn and Magus of the Moon. I'd really like to see Charmaw come in here in this matchup. That's one of my favorite cards from Modern Horizons 2, and I think an all-star in this matchup, as there are many colorless lands that the Tron decks are going to be playing. Kind of surprised that Steven is not even considering the card. He kind of just brushed past it when looking at his sideboard, but opting in to be on more of a Magus of the Moon plan, I suppose. I think playing both is fine, though. You are an 80-card deck, and you would just like to see the card. That is probably reason enough, as well as if there are any ways to tutor it, tutoring up on turn 2, or turn 2, and then playing it on turn 3, as you are on the draw. And Zach will probably have enough colorless lands to make that castable off of 2 mana. You could even do something like Ephemerate it, and be able to blow up 3 lands, and kind of just win the game from there. It really can't let that card resolve for too long if you're a Tron player. But Steven's looking like he's not going to be bringing that in, unfortunately. And not too many sideboard changes from Zach either. I mean, he is a Karn the Great Creator deck, so most, if not all of his sideboard is going to be taken up by artifacts that he can tutor for. Zach is going to mold on to 6 here, and looks like Steven will be keeping 7. Zach on a mold to 6 here, looking for probably either a quick Chalice start or something that actually produces Tron. Yeah, we do see. I was thinking he was on one of the Cascade decks, but looks like he's bringing back the old favorite of Eldrazi Tron here. Not super well positioned in the meta. I think there are certainly good matchups. You are maiden decking for Chalice of the Void, which is going to help you in those Cascade matchups. You also get to play things like Cavern, so you're better off against these counterspell decks like we see Murktide, and 4-color control. Steven is just going to lead on a forest and abundant growth. Picking up, we see Omnath, as well as a red and 6, I believe. So we should be set as long as we have at least one fetch land. It'll be Eldrazi Temple for Zach. I wonder if we have Meta Reshaper. We could do a Chalice here. Oh, looks like just a pass back. So we're going to be activating Map here. Steven is going to be resolving the trigger off of the Flamekin Harbinger, which is relevant because Steven does have a fetch land in play, so this card will go to the top, and the fetch land could change the order of that card, so if Steven would like to get a tapped fetchable land, he must do so before the trigger resolves from the Flamekin Harbinger. Yeah, Steven's on the Flamekin Harbinger build. We have not seen Eldamri's Call yet. It is just strictly a Fable the Mirrorbreaker full color elemental pile here. And Zach opting for turn 3 Reality Smasher, hoping to dodge a Solitude. Zach will crack in for 5, sending Steven down to 13, excuse me. 15, wow, I can math. So Steven will pick up the Omnath off of the top. I have 2 fetch lines in play. We also have not seen Expressive Iteration. I wonder if that's a card that has been trimmed for Flamekin Harbinger, or if it's just taking the spot of Risen Reef, like we typically do see for the elemental builds. Now Steven will be down to 14 off of fetch. For 2 mana, we could see something like a Beseiju. We are shocking into Steam Vents, though, it looks like. Maybe not. This is game 2. Steven did win game 1, so Zach is on the play here. G-Tron, not the best option here, as we were saying. It is vulnerable to things like Solitude, and even just the introduction of Beseiju has made it a little more difficult for Eldrazi to stand the test of time. And I think Mono Greentron, though, on the other hand, has been performing pretty well against these 4-color decks. But Karn the Great Creator, without counterspells from the Elementals player, might be able to turn the corner pretty quickly. I mean, able to find things like Sundering Titan, as well as Ensnaring Bridge to buy time. It looks like Karn's just going to tick down right away here.
No, he is actually.
So we have a mystery card being picked out from Zach's sideboard. Karn allowing the player to search for an artifact card from their sideboard, specifically outside the game. And Zach does not have Tron. He just has two Eldrazi Temples, a Cavern, and I believe an Urza Saga is the other land here. Pardon the glare. We're still working out the best way to position everything. So Mystic Forge is going to be able to get miles ahead of the Elementals deck if it is allowed to stick and play. I'm pretty sure Steven is on some copies of Prismatic Ending, as well as we saw from last game, Beseiju, who endures. Yeah, I'm a little surprised we didn't see Torpor Orb either. It's a little bit easier to cast and is more impactful early on, especially against something like the Elementals build as opposed to the Control build. Sundering Titan also being able to close the game out. That's not the worst decision, although without Tron in play, Zach is a little far off from casting that as it is a Golem and not even an Eldrazi that the Temples can tap extra for. So just a lonely 2/2 construct for Zach here. I think we're going to make a second one here, so they're going to get slightly bigger. And I mean, Steven missing line drops. I don't hate Eldrazi's Tron's position here. Steven is at 11, and in some sort of danger from these constructs. And I believe those are not one-to-one counters on the constructs. They're just dice indicating the power toughness on them, which is currently 3. See if Zach might have a backup card or something. That might have been why he opted to get Mystic Forge instead of Torpor Orb. I could see something like that. Maybe another way to find Tron, as we do have the Expedition map. Yeah, I mean, if Steven is allowed to get a little bit more mana in play, finding an Omnath or something, I'm sure there's some sort of card advantage in his hand already. But the Fable certainly will help him out here get more mana. If we have something like Omnath and we draw fetch land off the top, the treasure from the Goblin Shaman will allow us to make mana off of the Omnath as well. We did see Steven bring in Magus of the Moon as well as Knight of Autumn, but he opted not to bring in Obsidian Charma, which I think is a little bit better than Magus here, as Magus really just makes it so Zach just needs to find a waste or a swamp, which he does have Expedition map, so we can find that relatively easily. So Zach might be deploying the Mystic Forge that he tutored up here off of the Karn. We do see Chalice of the Void at hand as well, which, with Steven on 3 lands, putting that on 1 is not unreasonable, although we have seen quite a few bolts be used from Steven already. Looks like we are just going to crack Expedition map, so we might be a little weaker to something like Magus of the Moon if we don't have Dismember. So So we're just going to start the Tron journey here and pick up a tower.
30, 45. Yeah, going forward to that. Yeah, I was talking about ratio.
So a 3/3 Walking Ballista will take care of Steven's board for the time being. Fable will flip over to the backside after going on to the third chapter, making basically any creature Steven plays after this turn into a double copy of that. So something like Fury might be really strong at dealing with the board as well as cracking in for a few damage. But Steven is at 4, so this Omnath has got to do a lot of work in terms of finding lands. Maybe Knight of Autumn would be a reasonable draw here if something like Ephemerate is in hand. We'll have Solitude pitching a second Omnath, which will probably take care of the construct, I imagine. Or I guess Walking Ballista is also a construct, but in this case, it will just be the Walking Ballista that bites the dust. And no land, no fourth land at all for Steven, so this Omnath not going to be gaining any life just yet. Looks like Mystic Forge is coming down now. Oh, nope, all is dust off of 3 Eldrazi Temples. It looks like all is dust is enough for Steven. Unfortunately, not finding a fourth land, I think that game might have been winnable if we were allowed to have a little bit more access to mana. But all his dust is just going to take out Steven's permanents, except for his lands, as well as just being able to come in for a lot of damage with a construct there. So players have less than 10 minutes, but we'll be heading over to game 3 with elementals on the plate here. Yep. All right, so players picking up the pace of play here, acknowledging that there is not too much time left in the round. We're already on turn 2 here for Zach, who is on the draw, but does have 2 temples into a Thought-Knot Seer. Let's see if he can follow it up with some more explosive plays like Reality Smasher and just try to get this game over with as fast as possible, which off of 2 temples is certainly attainable. Alright, so TKS, we'll see Omnath, Solitude, Fable, and Eternal Witness. Zach opting to take the Omnath, as well as Cavern. So we do have not 4 lands for Omnath, but they will get rid of the white card for Solitude. I believe Blooded Strand was the draw. Okay, so that was a good pick on taking the Omnath early, making it so Steven can't really get out of this too easily without drawing a backup Omnath. And in the face of a 4/4, it might be good enough, but Fable the Mirror Breaker gonna soften the blow slightly. Adding some creatures for Steven, as well as some card draw in the form of looting with the second ability of Fable. Cavern's gonna come down, and here's the Reality Smasher I was talking about. Now Zach has suddenly 9 power in play on turn 3, and we're getting into the red zone, sending Steven down to 11. Steven does find a Teferi, though. Not going to be super great against the haste threat of Reality Smasher, but it's certainly better than nothing. Like Tronland, Matter Reshaper, and some other non-land cards for Zach. I didn't get a great look at all of them just now. Now, Steven does have a window here where we could attack in for a treasure. Okay, we do see this. I wonder if we've picked up an Omnath. I know we have Fetch Land. Kind of surprised we ditched the Teferi. Yes, certainly not the Pioneer format tonight, but Fable is I've been liking it in a few decks. I'm not crazy about it in the 80 card decks. It's a little slow, as you can see in this matchup. It's just not quite enough. Even with Steven on the play, it's going to be a turn too late from this aggressive start from Eldrazi Tron. So I think we did pick up another Omnath, but it is going to be pitched to the Solitude now. So buying Steven a little bit of time here. And it looks like Ephemerate on the Solitude, so that makes sense. We're going to take out both of these creatures that will be exiled, gaining Zach 9 life. And if that was Ephemerate, the creature should stay in play. Drawing Steven a card from the Thought-Knot Seer. And here's just a Lonely Matter Reshaper, a pair of Matter Reshapers off of the 2 Eldrazi Temples in play. On upkeep, we will Ephemerate the Solitude, taking care of one of these Matter Reshapers. Notably, that is a dies trigger, so it will not get any advantage, give any advantage to Zach here. Fable will flip. And now that the creatures have been dealt with, I think it is pretty reasonable for this Fable to actually start taking over the game. Let's see if we have a third Omnath for Steven. We've already been through 2 in the 80 card deck, and this is like the top 15 cards or so, so it's not incredibly likely, but that is why we're playing things like the Flamekin Harbinger. Steven will allow Zach to get the Matter Reshaper trigger off of the trade here, and that's going to reveal Karn the Great Creator for Zach. And players with just about 3 minutes left, too. Not a whole lot of time for Steven to turn the corner here. All right, we were back. I was just informing our players that they are going off of the stream timing around and not the timer for the rest of our matches. And so it looks like another Fable was cast, and that might be a way for Steven to actually close this game out relatively quickly. If we play these next few turns fast, we can get Fable to flip, and then be able to make copies of Fable, of the reflections of Kikijiki, and then be able to make a bunch of something like Solitude, or even make a bunch of treasures with the Goblin Shamans that can close the game relatively quickly. But we did find third Omnath. So Omnath is going to be able to make some mana, gain some life, and not deal damage just yet. But in the face of, I think, just a 2/2 Ballista, we'll be able to get in a little bit of damage this turn. There's not a whole lot of time to be thinking here as we are approaching the 1 minute mark. We do kind of just need to get this game over with as quickly as possible with the time allowed. So the Solitude will be taken care of with, thanks to the Walking Ballista with 2 counters on it. I think when Steven is trying to make a copy of it, so we're going to come across for 2, give Steven a second treasure here. And probably just a pass back, yep. And Zach will draw a card. And I think All Is Dust is really the only out he has here. He has 2 Eldrazi Temples we know about, so it's 2, 4, 7 mana exactly. If that's something in his grip right now, that is certainly the play. Here's just another 2/2 Ballista, though. I think you need to take out the Fable, though, with this, or else you are facing down a lot of trouble. And Zach's just going to pass it back with about 20 seconds left on the clock. This will make Steven turn 0. So Fable's going to flip. So Steven's going to have this turn plus turn 2 and 4 of turns, which might be enough if Zach's plan is just to keep playing Walking Ballistas, not adding anything too meaningful to the board. We will probably see the Elemental deck run away with this game despite being down on time, but it certainly can win the game pretty quickly, as we are going to see here. We come across for 6, make a treasure, and deal with this Walking Ballista. Yeah, it's just going to target the not summoning sick Fable. And Steven could make copies here if he really wanted to. He could just make another Goblin Shaman, but I think he would have done that before combat as to maximize damage this turn. We cannot target Omnath here. Let's see if our players notice this. All right, I'm going to go let them know. All right, so we did get that board state fixed. We did accidentally make a copy of Omnath, even though that is a legendary creature. Yeah, a player's playing a little quickly. I mean, they are in turns in a local event, so I understand the haste there, but we just want to make things as casual as possible, so we just put the known card that was immediately drawn back on top of the library, randomized it, and then we are all back to normal. So nothing too crazy here. All right, so we are on turn 1 of turns. This is Zach's priority, and it looks like he just assembled Tron. We'll see what kind of shenanigans we can get done with the turns allowed. And it looks like it's just going to be Karn the Great Creator. This could fetch up Ensnaring Bridge, which with one card in hand after casting the bridge might buy Zach enough time. As I was saying before, these elemental versions of the 4-color piles do not play counter spells, which in matchups like these, you really miss. We'll see what Zach wants to get here. I think we're really looking at Torpor Orb or Ensnaring Bridge, as those are going to buy Zach the most amount of time here and leave Steven with the least amount of answers too. I think he's looking for Night of Autumn, something like Prismatic Ending, and it looks like Zach does decide to get Ensnaring Bridge here. This will send Cardin down to 3, and we'll play the bridge with one card in hand. And then next turn with Tron active, we can just see Sundering Titan off of the Karn, and that will put Steven into a position where I don't think he can win the game past that. He does have Cavern in play, which will stick around, as well as a fetch. But generally, Sundering Titan is the nail in the coffin for these 4-color decks, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a concession. But we are in turns, so this match may result in a draw if we do see Sundering Titan come down next turn. And we do see Steven fetch with his Flooded Strands, which will make the Sundering Titan even better, depending on what we fetch up here. Actually, no. Okay, so there is no Sundering Titan coming down because the Omnath is actually going to take care of the Karn. So now we need to find a way to deal with this bridge, as there's only one card in hand for Zach. So I guess now is the time when we're going to see if Steven is on any copies of Eladamri's Call, which will help us find a way to answer this Ensnaring Bridge. And even if we do need to answer it this turn to be able to get enough damage across, as Zach is at 22. It looks like just Solitude and Renin 6 and potentially Sokenzon in hand for Steven, so I don't think we are going to see an answer to this bridge. Here's a Renin 6. I suppose finding Beseiju is also a way out of this. Here is Flamekin Harbinger off of a Cavern. Unfortunately, Night of Autumn is not an elemental, although we will be able to find Risen Reef here and cast it, so we can get one step closer to finding something like Night of Autumn. So Risen Reef will go on top of Steven's deck and pass the turn back over to Zach. We'll untap and appears to find another Karn. And we have Tron as well as 3 other lands, which will be a total of 10 mana, which can get us a 6-drop off of Karn. Not quite Sundering Titan mana. But here's the Karn off of 2 Tron lands. Oh, actually, off of Tower plus not Tron land. That's going to go ahead and find us any artifact out of the sideboard and put it directly into Zach's hand, which I think he can cast most everything aside from the Sundering Titan that is potentially in his sideboard. And the last card in his hand was all his dust. So this is going to take out everything except for Steven's lands, which I don't think he can come back from. I don't think Zach can technically win the game, but it is certainly imminent off of having a Karn and Snaring Bridge and your opponent having no permanents other than lands in play, especially with only 2 or 3 cards in hand left for Steven. And we're just going to see it pass back. So here is a Risen Reef. We're going to find another land, play one for turn. This is the 4th turn of turns here. This will be turn 5. So I don't think Zach has any way to actually win the game. But we're about to find out now. I think Tower was the pickup here. Karn, I believe, was ticked up last turn. Steven at 17, out of Walking Ballista range 2, I don't think that's really an option. Although Zach does have plenty of mana. I mean, all Zach really has to do is minus Karn for something like Sundering Titan, and that does put Steven back quite a bit. Yeah, we do see the Titan here. That's not going to win the game, technically, but I mean, I think it's safe to say that Steven can't actually win this game. I'm going to go talk to our players and see what the actual outcome of this game was. So I did confirm with our players that match did end in a draw, despite Eldrazi being up. In the end there, I think there are still ways to draw out of that, but just looking for our players to play maybe a little quicker next time. That is just the nature of these 4 color decks, though. They do tend to take quite a fair amount of time. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll see you guys back here for run number 2 in just a few moments. All right, we are back here for round number 2 of Chupacabra Games Monday Modern. Looks like our 2 players today are going to be Caleb on Mono Green Tron and Anthony on Hammertime. Now, I know we just saw Tron on the feature match last round, but this is a slightly different variant of the deck. It's going to be more focused on making the Tron on turn 3, which, if you don't know, Tron is assembling the 3 lands of Urza's Tower, Urza's Mine, and Urza's Power Plant, and together they all add 7 colorless, which is going to help Caleb cast cards like Karn Liberated, Karn the Great Creator. I think he's playing Thragtusk, as well as any of the cards that he so chooses to cast. Mono Green Tron typically playing more cards like the spheres. We'll see Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, helping him to cast his green spells like Ancient Stirrings and Sylvan Scrying to find more threats and more Tron lands. As we see Caleb start here with an Urza's Mine into a Chromatic Star. And Anthony's side of things, we are going to be looking at a quick combo kill as to before Karn the Great Creator hits the battlefield. Didn't get a great look because of the glare, but I believe it was Springleaf Drum for turn 1. And this is a turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic. And there's most likely going to find Colossus Hammer. Oh, it looks like the turn 1 play was Giver of Runes. Actually going to be a pretty useful card in this matchup, as it can give protection from colorless, as well as any color, to stop things like Dismember, as well as Warping Whale, or Spatial Contortion, or what have you. But it looks like Cauldron Complete was the find here from Anthony. He's going to opt for a not combo kill, but rather a 4-turn clock with the Cauldron Complete Germ token. And it looks like Caleb's going to make Tron on 3, find a Karn the Great Creator. I would imagine if Anthony's taking this line, he may be conceding the fact that Caleb could have a Karn the Great Creator and is choosing to not play into Pure Steel Paladin rather and have the Culture Complete be his way to win this game. But it looks like Pithing Needle is going to come down off of the Karn, and that's presumably going to name Stoneforge Mystic, allowing Culture Complete not to not come down as early. I think Ginger Brute was the play, and as we're going to see 3 creatures attack the Karn here to take that out. Caleb with another Tron land. Looking like we're just passing back here. Anthony's going to attack for 3 this time at Caleb's face, down to 17. Now that Karn is off the field, we might be looking at a way to recover to just equip our hammers, but I believe Anthony only has 1 card in hand, so might not be able to make that happen. And here is Ulamog for Caleb. Gonna take out Giver as well as Stoneforge Mystic, it looks like, opting to not go after Anthony's lands, which, with only 3 power in play, I think I like taking out Anthony's lands, just removing his ability to play the game. And now Anthony does have a chance to sort of rebuild his board state a little bit, and before 20 cards get exiled from his library. But Hammer being one of those decks that is able to win the game incredibly quickly with the right cards. And here's a Stoneforge. That's presumably going to find a Hammer now. Caleb will play and crack a star, it looks like. getting a redraw on, getting to float some green mana. Hoping to find something like Ancient Stirrings or Ugin the Spirit Dragon, maybe even second Ulamog. Here's 3 mana for Expedition Map and Crack Expedition Map. Probably going to get Sanctum of Ugin here. I can see getting Blast Zone as well. That's a pretty powerful card in the matchup. Being able to destroy all 1-drops pretty much. Going to be the main mode for that. Here's Blast Zone. That's going to be the land for turn. Alright, an attack for 10 will exile the top 20 cards of Anthony's library, making this a 2, if not 3 turn clock. One way or another, this game will be over. And with a Blast Zone in play, I really like Caleb's odds, being able to deal with whatever Anthony puts down, especially if he's trying to win with a Colossus Hammer. Caleb doesn't need to commit too much more to the board here, although it would not hurt if he had it. I just don't think that's what his hand is doing right now. He's just going to be protecting the board with Blast Zone. And we do still Pure Steel Paladin plus Ink Moth Nexus for Anthony here, but the hammer is going to prove rather useless unless we have a second one, as the Blast Zone is going to take good care of that hammer. So Anthony trying to combo a win together here. I think you kind of have to bait out the Blast Zone with a hammer and hope that you can find a second hammer, and I believe that's what's happening now. And so Blast Zone will take care of a few 1-drops here in the form of the Ginger Brute as well as the hammer. And Oblivion Stone is going to be the drop for Caleb here. So a lot of protection as long as Caleb keeps up 5 mana. We're going to see it's virtually impossible for Caleb to lose from here, although if a consideration is to blow up the Blast Zone or the Oblivion Stone now, as it's not going to get rid of land permanents, but it will get rid of the hammers if Anthony tries to equip any. But we're just going to play Cauldron here off of the Stoneforge now that Pithing Needle is gone. And I think we did block with Cauldron complete. So that is why we see Ulamog in exile and just 3 cards left in Anthony's library. So Cauldron is going to be able to take out the Ulamog, which makes it so Anthony has a few turns of the game left to play. All right, got the prediction set up for this round for you guys. You can bet your channel points now. So Anthony's going to commit a lot to the board, but that's going to result in Caleb popping the Oblivion Stone, which is not going to kill the Cauldra or Ninkmoth Nexus. And we'll see if Anthony can pull this one out in the next couple of turns, as that's how many cards are left in his deck. We're going to play a Giver, as well as one more card that is blocked a little bit by the Glare. Ancient Stirrings is the cast. This is Spell Pierce. Okay, that was the card left in hand for Anthony. Caleb will pay the 2. Anthony doing that in hopes that it's going to do something. It might prevent him from casting a card, but we do see Karn liberated here, which can either take out the Germ, Cauldra Complete, or Inkmoth Nexus, and we're going to opt for the Cauldra Complete. And now we just have Giver, Inkmoth. Yep, okay. Unfortunately, there weren't enough cards left in deck for Anthony here, and he is going to scoop them up and move over to game 2 as Caleb takes this game 1 victory here in round number 2. Hammertime now being able to be on the play, I think favors the deck a little bit more. We're going to see the deck just be able to goldfish a little bit better. This is certainly a matchup where a turn 2 kill is very on the table, just by having a Giver in play that's going to protect from the one removal spell that the Tron player might have. I think we're just going to see Dismembers come in from Caleb, speaking of removal spells, as most of his sideboard will be taken up by artifact cards that will be found off of Karn the Great Creator. For Anthony's side of things, we might see something like more counter spells. I was going to say Thoughtseize, but this is the blue version of the deck, so we are just going to be aiming to counter our opponent's spells. And I could see bringing in copies of Lavinia, the newer one printed in the most recent Ravnica. That card helps stop some of the cards cast from Tron. It's mostly going to stop something like Karn the Liberated, as we see here on screen, as well as Ugin, the countering non-creature spells with CMC more than the amount of lands in play is going to be the irrelevant mode here on Lavinia. That's certainly something I could see Anthony bringing in here. It is a little slow. I think on the play is definitely when you want to see that card, but it also just doesn't stop something like Walking Ballista, which Caleb, I believe, is on a few copies of, as we don't see a Giganta Companion that usually indicates if Walking Ballista is in the deck or not. And Caleb on the draw, he's really just going to be looking for a hand with some sort of resiliency to creatures on the form of Dismember, maybe a Warping Whale, maybe Spatial Contortion. Probably Dismember, though, as it's 1 mana. And he's also going to be looking for something that makes Tron relatively quickly. Obviously, turn 3 is ideal, but also needing removal spells. It might not be as guaranteed. All right, just about a minute left in the prediction here. If you'd like to make any bets on channel points, you certainly can now. All right, our players are shuffling up here for game 2 and round 2. It looks like both players will be mulliganing down to 6 here. Something pretty typical we're going to see from the Tron side of things. are a lot of mulligans. It is certainly, outside of Dredge, probably the best deck at mulliganing in the format, as you need very few cards to actually play the game. You really just need 3 lands that say Urza on them, and they will be able to help you win the game. As well as you naturally want to have some sort of threats in your opening hand, but that is something that the deck is very plentiful of, so you can generally find those. It looks like Anthony will be keeping 6, and Caleb will be moving down to 5. See, if 5 is enough cards for Caleb here, we're going to be looking for Tron lands, like we said earlier, as well as something like Dismember or any way to interact with Anthony. It could be Blast Zone, that is a little bit of a slower option, but an option nonetheless. And I do think we actually see that in Caleb's hand now. Playing Blast Zone on turn 4, not a terrible option. That is going to help clean up the board a little bit. We do see Anthony lead on Esper Sentinel, so this might tax Caleb a little bit. Although we do see Gut Shot actually be pretty relevant here, as he can pay 2 life and still have a mana to deny Anthony the card. And we're going to be turn 2 Lavinia, like we were talking about earlier. Now, Lavinia is going to help against any natural turn 3 Tron draws we see here. Azorius Renegade, that is the subtitle for Lavinia there. And it's just for Caleb, it's just going to be Power Plant, Star Pass. There's a Saga for Anthony. And I think now we're going to see Pure Steel. Yep. We might see a Hammer as well to get a draw. We certainly do. So next turn, we might see Anthony come in for 14. We're going to get in for 2 now with Lavinia, putting Caleb down to 16. Almost lethal attackers here. Here's turn 3 Tron off of Caleb. We're going to make a green float colorless, crack the star, looks like. So still 7 mana, just available to Caleb, but one of them being green. Sylvan Scrying looks like it will be cast. This is going to find a Passeju. It is, okay. And we do have a green. Oh no, we do not have a green floating anymore. So this is going to set up for next turn. I'd like to believe something like Dismember is afoot in Caleb's hand. Looks like Anthony does not have another artifact here yet. Just going to come across for 4 damage. Blast Zone is now the play. Pretty good at dealing with Sigarda's and Hammer here at the same time. It looks like Caleb's just going to drop his Blast Zone past the turn. Anthony will now float a colorless, search with his Saga. Maybe find something like Pithing Needle here, actually, which will be able to name the Blast Zone, and Caleb cannot interact because the Saga ability is already resolving. And here is a Pithing Needle. Pretty interesting play too with the Saga is that even if Caleb decided to blow up the Blast Zone now before the Pithing Needle would hit it, Anthony would be able to just choose to get a Colossus Hammer and then have Pure Steel. So either way, Caleb's kind of behind here, despite having Tron on 3. And we're going to equip Colossus Hammer to Pure Steel Paladin and come in for lethal. So we're going to head on to game 3 with Caleb on the play now. Yep, any day Tron loses is a good day. I can agree with that statement. Although it is looking pretty strong in the meta, so there's a pretty good reason to be playing the green version of Tron these days. And Burn, oddly enough, where Modern's in a very weird spot right now where those decks are, they've been around in the format forever and they're still good, turns out. Both of our players doing a bit of a mulliganing here, not uncommon from either deck. Caleb gonna look at another 7. I think down to 5 here for him. Looks like Anthony will be keeping 6 here. See if Caleb can deliver another Tron on 3 hand. I believe on the play that is going to be a little more impactful than we saw last game. So you just have access to more things like Karn the Great Creator being able to be a little proactive, as well as Karn taking out lands. Karn Liberated. But Caleb's going to be keeping 5 here, putting back a star and another card. We're going to start with Tower and a map. So this looks like the road to turn 3 Tron. Anthony has turn 1 Esper Sentinel. Certainly better on the play, but it'll do good on the draw as well. Here's second Tron land with a tower in play. What looks like we are going to be making a Tron on 3. And here's Lavinia though. So this will prevent most good plays from Caleb having Tron in play on turn 3. We could still cast things like Worm Coil or Thrag Tusk. We're going to go search up a mine here. Caleb will untap and draw after taking 1 from the Esper Sentinel. And here's mine. Do we see a Walking Ballista? Okay, a pretty good answer here to both of Anthony's creatures. We see a star come down with it as well. So a 3-power Ballista. I wouldn't be surprised if this just took out the creatures now. But I think we can wait until Anthony tries to actually equip a hammer or some kind of equipment to these creatures. But Ballista probably being the best answer for Caleb here to have against Lavinia, as well as the taxing Esper Sentinel. Like end step, we're just going to be taking care of this Lavinia. Leads me to believe Caleb has something like Karn. Either Karn, actually. I think the Great Creator actually does a little bit more work here, as it's going to Stony Silence Anthony's. Or Null Rod, actually. Anthony's side of the board. And here is the Great Creator. could find something like engineered explosives, a pithing needle of his own. Quite a few options here. It could even be another ballista. Or good old liquid metal coating. We might see that as well. It's like it's just going to be Pithing Needle. We're probably going to be naming Urza's Saga. Well, March of the Otherworldly Light will take care of the Pithing Needle. So Urza's Saga is still going to be able to make creatures, a pretty important play here for Anthony, just a way to add to the board without expending cards from his hand. Here's backup Lavinia. And an Inkmoth Nexus, so we might be able to sneak in a kill here for Anthony. Here's a 4th land. And is this going to be a backup Ballista? I could also see an argument for something like Ensnaring Bridge. That might be pretty difficult for Anthony's deck to get around here. Yeah, looks like we're just going to pick up another Walking Ballista with access to 9 mana. That is a 4/4 that we could create here. Looks like we are going to do that. And that's going to take out the Lavinia as well as a Karnstruct token if we so choose. The floating colors, we're going to make it green and just pass it back. Anthony's going to make a Karnstruct here before searching, and it looks like we're going to take care of Lavinia before this effect resolves. So Caleb's sitting here with a card, as well as a ballista that if it lives, he can just continually add more counters to, and it's going to be great at answering pretty much anything Anthony can play here. As most of Anthony's creatures start off having very little toughness, but when they're equipped with Colossus Hammer, they become pretty hard to kill with burn-based removal. Like Pithing Needle is going to be the find off of this saga, so that's more than likely going to name this Walking Ballista. As Karn might have already done its damage, and we don't know about any Karn Liberateds or any other threats from Caleb. We're going to boot up an Inkmoth, and I think just take out the Karn. Yep, alright. Karn is out of here. And here's a backup saga. With a Pure Steel Paladin, okay. So pretty good setup turn for Anthony here. We're just going to try to dodge things from Caleb, and this is an Ulamog. That's going to take out Inkmoth Nexus and Urza's Saga, looks like. Anthony will untap. And cast a Steel Shaper's Gift, which will probably find just a hammer. Yeah, as we do see Pure Steel Paladin already in play, we just need to find another artifact. And this could actually make it any of Anthony's creatures able to block and survive against this Ulamog. Unfortunately, it's going to take 20 cards from Anthony's deck every time it attacks. So that might not be a viable option for too long. Star for Caleb, we're going to try to find yet another threat. I think just... Oh, Ancient Stirrings was picked up, alright, so that's more than likely going to find some sort of threat here. And this time it'll be Karn Liberated. This is more than likely going to take out the Pure Steel Paladin, just minimize the ways that Caleb can actually die in this game. And with only 2 cards in hand for Anthony, seems pretty hard. Alright, apologies for the interruption there. Looks like Caleb is going to take this game here and proceed to remain undefeated. And let's hope we get to see something other than Tron next round. But as our Tron player moves closer to being undefeated, we are going to probably see more of him. But Tron proving the test of time and still being a relevant deck here in 2022. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break here and catch you guys back for round number 3 in around 10 minutes or so.
Hello, folks. This is Chupacabra Games. My name is Anthony Shaw. Just to let you know, we have just called time and round. There is about two people that is currently finishing up their match, and it's really deep, so we cannot move them on to the feature match. However, give us about 5 minutes, and we should have round four starting with the undefeateds at the time playing. Oh, wait, no. This will be round three starting. Why am I saying that? Who knows? Well, have a good day.
All right, sorry everyone about the lack of commentary. We've had a large trade-in come in, so we're gonna be taking a little break from the talking for a little bit, but we might be back to catch the tail end of this match.